UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Are they extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers in origin, or are they simply a result of top-secret military projects, false flag alien invasion, PSYOP, drones, or other human-made aircraft? Join the discussion now on UAP Crossfire.
Well, good evening and welcome to UAP Crossfire at KGR Radio DB. I am with my most esteemed co-hosts. Have a long list of important things to get to tonight. Always, since I never have time at the end of the show, and we have a very special for the closing of the show coming up tonight, I always like to get out my favorite prayer and wish, God's peace to all of you that surpasses all knowledge and understanding. And it might be very fitting tonight to keep that in mind as we work through what I consider probably the hottest burning issue going on right now. And we started a little bit of it last week. I'm Commander Cobra. Thank you very much for putting up with me last week in my the squirrel that was running the internet feed that I had that allowed me to have one word and one slow scan picture every 2 minutes until it finally just completely broke down. I guess apparently I took up quite a bit of bandwidth with the rest of the group that I was with. There was complaints and there was accusations of naughty vision being on my computer. And when I showed them the show on YouTube later, they said you should go watch Naughty Vision. So I'll let you all work on that one. Getting ready for this show tonight, before I bring it around the horn and introduce you, I had a lot of titles that I was working up for the show. So there is nothing to fear but drones themselves, is because I was reading a book by Churchill the last week or so. I have an older book of his and I was reading that. That's what it came. But I had come up with keep calm and drone on. I thought that had some application. Then I thought, let's go trendy, Game of Drones. Ooh, which is trending up here in the greater Boston area. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the one that everyone's talking about, Drone Gate. And that might actually have more attachment by the time we get done with the show. And I was hoping that this show would be more, because it's the holiday show, and each one of us will give our personal wishes. But on behalf of UAP Crossfire hosts, as well as KGRA, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, whatever else that you celebrate, and a most blessed and safe new year that's ahead. But I really was hoping this show would be like the Jingle Mingle thing, that we could talk about all these things going on. But I just said, we need to jump into this. And as I brought up last week, I thought that this report of drone activity, UAPs over New Jersey, was pretty interesting because it's been the most prominent public one on a series of many, many events. And in the span of that in the week, we have had many, many breakthrough events that we'll go through tonight. Before we dive in, let me go around the horn, starting with Chris DiPerno. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Commander. Great to be here.
Padre Dan Carson.
I don't know why we're doing a show on drones, because Admiral Kirby says there's nothing to see here.
Yeah, and if he can't take the Admiral at his word, there is nothing to see here. Padre Dan Carson.
Good evening. Nice to be with you, gentlemen. A hearty Merry Christmas to all, and to all who are watching and listening tonight.
And Don Ecker, otherwise known as Decker, who is already sporting for Christmas presents by mail.
Gentlemen, it's a distinct pleasure to be here. A very hearty, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody within the sound of my voice. And this show should promise to be, if I may say so, quite the barn burner.
I think that's a good way to put it. I'd like to give a quick tip of the hat to many of the articles, and I tried to get him on the show tonight. Hopefully in the future he will. Howard Altman, he's at the War Zone, which can be seen at twz.com. In fact, any of the articles that you hear us talking about, if you drop me an email, I'll be more than happy to send it off to audience members. And those folks that I haven't had a chance to catch up on the email the last 2 days, I have a number of emails that have come in that I have read, but I haven't had a chance to respond to. I promise I'll get to it this weekend.
Commander, real quickly,
Yes.
Somebody is here that would like to wave to you all in the audience. May I have a moment?
Yes. Is that an orb? Oh, look at who's there.
Oh,
Oh, careful. There's an adult
That's-
message to the right there.
That's my Snoopy,
Yeah.
my Christmas Snoopy.
no.
I think he's got an obscene T-shirt next to him.
Yeah. An adult
Oh, well.
message, no doubt.
We just went X-rated, folks.
Oh,
Only for a moment. So Howard Altman, the Warzone, TWZ.com, they have been covering the drone flying over various military installations, and this particular situation that is started out in the Northeast and now is everywhere. I have reports. Chris, if you get a chance, throw up that graphic that shows the up until about 48 hours ago, the plot that shows everywhere from Maine all the way down into South Carolina, across Tennessee, into the Chicago area, Michigan. Now, these events were plotted against a variety of reports, and you can see that concentration from D.C. all the way up to the Boston, New York area. Okay, so gentlemen, how we want to weigh in on this? Let me just give you an overall impression. I obviously think that there is no UFO, UAP of extraterrestrial activity in this. I just don't see it yet. But what I do see is the inability for government spokespeople to be able to give any kind of explanation to what is going on. And the disinformation portion, I feel, is on purpose. That we are being psyoped as well as measured by what's going on. And I think we have an actual situation in this that they're trying to keep off the radar. I can't help but think that it's partially this nanny state kind of nonsense that goes on, that we can't handle the truth is one part. And unfortunately, I think it has something to do with the events of January 2025 coming up, that there's a possibility that there's a connection there. Do we have a hostile power like one of the terrorist organizations, or a country not friendly to the United States that is trying to do something in the event? That's a strong possibility in my mind. Chris and I were talking off air that one of the latest theories that's been passed up is that we have a breakaway element of the U.S. military that is threatening, that is partially being searched for, and they have a weapon. We have seen reports, unverifiable but open reports, that we have radiological material that is missing. Empty container that showed up, material that would be used for a medical therapy or for x-rays, that has disappeared. One thing I can say for sure, two things. One, the flight behavior of these vehicles shows some kind of dedicated operation. If it's something simple as training, doesn't make much sense to me. Or if they're working a search, the Padre asked me about that. They're flying classical search patterns that would allow sensors to overlap track legs so that you can see what's there. It's very, very, very straightforward. I think a lot of people have joined in with their own UAPs, people that have sent up their own drones, try to fly to these drones with interesting results. They were repelled. That tells me we have a pretty advanced system that's going on there. Lastly, when I look at this, I undoubtedly there is manned aircraft mixed in with this. And we have people that are now so hyper engaged on this that they're looking at the activity and they are reporting everything, which really plays into the hands of someone who really wants to keep this in the press. Maybe you want some kind of sleight of hand to keep you away from the issue that's in hand, or maybe other things like a $150 trillion slot bill that you want to try to get through Congress just before the government switches out. All those things could be fitted in there. The activity at the other military bases is interesting. I don't think we were getting probed at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I think that was actually a exercise of vehicles on a test. I think that that's what occurred there. But it's undoubtedly we have foreign powers at our overseas bases that are being looked at. We know that Langley went through this earlier. We have a real interesting mess on our hands. And on the face of this is the inability for anybody to give a concrete answer that doesn't seem to have legalese all over it. I'll start with you, Don. What do you think is going on?
You really sure you want to start with me?
Yes, I do.
Okay. As you all know, both myself and Chris DiPerno are former police officers and detectives. What that means is, by nature, I am a very, depending upon the situation, a very suspicious person. And I'm going to tell you right up front, my trust in any governmental authority right now is almost at absolute zero. For 4 years during the Biden administration, we basically have been absent a president of the United States. Not only are his mental faculties diminished almost to the point of incoherence, his vice president is also noticeably absent. For example, right now, okay, the federal government is on the verge of being shut down. Okay, now that is something normally the commander-in-chief would be on top of immediately. No word from anybody. And now we have this drone business that began roughly around the 17th, 18th of November. Now, I got to tell you, initially, when I heard these reports, the first thing that came to my mind was that it's some type of either contractor or perhaps the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, somebody testing out new systems. But as time went on and we began getting all of these remarks from governmental spokesmen that, hey, we don't know what they are. We don't know where they're coming from. But don't worry. We don't see any danger in that. Now, for the 3 men here that served in the armed forces, you know that is not the case at all. Immediately, my red flags popped up everywhere. And as time went on and more of these incursions began, I got very nervous. Then, roughly a week or so ago, somebody mentioned, or I read somewhere, that a theory was these were sniffer drones looking for radioactive material. That made sense to me, okay? Now, what could that mean? A loose nuke? Could that mean a smuggled nuke? Could that mean foreign operatives are at work within the borders of the United States of America? Well, that made sense to me. Why? Well, because the last 3.5 years or so, we have had millions, and yeah, I'm going to say it, illegal aliens flood this country with not a speck of interest by the federal government, the Biden administration, the vice president, or anybody else. We've had foreign agents captured within the United States with barely a mention in the press that has been dead now for years, and no idea what the heck is going on. Now, I got to tell you, Commander Cobra, Chris, Padre, I don't see anything good coming out of this. And furthermore, in approximately 1 month, we are going to have a change in leadership in this country. Now, just watching what the current administration is doing to attempt to sabotage the new incoming administration by all of these things, including things like Trump proofing, Washington, D.C., shoving judges into the courts. California, Gavin Newsom, going to Trump proof one of the biggest failing states in the United States, California, where I live. All right. I got to tell you, it doesn't look good. And now to get into a little conspiracy territory, I would not be shocked if there was a plan afoot by elements within the Biden administration to somehow train wreck and derail the incoming inauguration of President-elect Trump. So I guess my bottom line, gentlemen, is that we're right now traversing through a bucket of horse shit, okay? A bucket of horse shit. And I'm nervous. That's my bottom line, Commander.
Audrey.
Here in western South Dakota, we're well acquainted with horse excrement, and while it's generally not a concern, I do share some of Don's concerns over what's going on in our country's skies. I should also say that what I'm seeing here in the eastern section of the nation is not new to me, and we'll get more in depth later, but an almost identical situation, including the configurations, the reported patterns, all of it took place in the remote portions of the southern Nebraska Panhandle and northeastern Colorado in 2019 into 2020, from December into February. And I was at the heart of that particular matter. I share your assessment, Commander, that these are not extraterrestrial. However, when somebody throws a party and you may not have been invited, but you see a way that you might be able to join to your advantage, well,
Sure.
Why not? There's nothing like hiding in plain sight when everybody's dressed up at the party the same way that you are. So I won't discount that some of the things might be of a non-human intelligence origin, but by and large, I think that these are man-made devices. What are they doing? They're searching. They're looking for something. I can almost guarantee that. What? I have no idea. I have some ideas. Later we can get into that, but I think that what we're seeing here is a concerted search effort by man-made machines. As to who's behind it, well, I believe it's the government, though I have no idea which three-letter agency or branch of the military would be fingered in that particular thing. So that's my assessment.
Chris.
Geez, there's so much there. I don't know where to start. I mean, we just have a bucket full of conspiracy theories and just stuff going around. So let me start with the alien theory. I kind of think what the Padre is getting at, and I kind of agree that, hey, if there's a good show going, let's go watch it. You know what I mean? This is like going to the movies and saying, hey, well, let's see what the crazy humans are going to do now. Kind of a deal. But I don't think that this is anything to do with extraterrestrials as far as what we're seeing in the skies in New York, New Jersey, down the East Coast. So there was one theory that, as we talked off air, that a rogue element in the military has got themselves a weapon of mass destruction and are going to try to take out Trump. Okay, you can look at that and maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But there's no indication. I haven't seen anything or heard anything from anybody saying, hey, we're going to be fighting ourselves with that. So that's out there. But here's a couple of things that worry me and stuff. First, we do know that radiation material has been stolen. December 2nd, there was a report to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that equipment that had radioactive material in it, the container that was shipped to New Jersey, was broken open and it was stolen. Now that material that is radioactive can be made into a dirty bomb. You could take it and, create a bomb, and although it won't be a nuclear explosion, it will put radiation over a vast area. And that's something to be concerned about. So how do you find that? Well, you got to put up, usually throughout the United States, they have planes that are sniffers. But we do know that the Department of Energy has bought a bunch of drones that are sniffers, that they can go and detect gamma rays and X-rays and anything else. So when Admiral Kirby gets up there and lies his ass off to us and says, well, it's not the Department of Defense, we got nothing to do with it, and says there's nothing to see here, they're actually right. The Department of Defense is not doing this. It's the Department of Energy that probably does it, has a NEST team, has all the stuff to do with a nuclear emergency. So nobody's mentioned anything about DOE. If you notice that, I've been watching all the news reports. Nobody says anything about the Department of Energy. And they're the ones that are supposed to be handling this stuff. So if there is this. Now, the thing is that this military contractor who makes military drones has put a TikTok video out. Now, I looked at this thing and I go, wow, this guy's trying to drum up business. But as I was listening to it, and we have a copy of it, we'll play it probably somewhere in the show. I think he's genuine. He doesn't mess around. He actually says, guys, back in the 80s during the Reagan's administration, when the Soviet Union fell, there were a lot of nuclear weapons that were unaccounted for, one of them Ukraine. And he specifically says that a person that told him, and I'm starting to sound like David Grush's stuff, but a person told him that they actually seen the nuclear weapon and they knew it was going to the States. Now, we all know there's people out there that want to blow us up. So, I mean, is it plausible? Yeah, it'd be very plausible that happened. Here's the thing that frightens me the most. One, they detected a higher level of radiation in the New York area. In the New York City area, they're saying that the rads up there are like 200 times more. They found a couple of spots that had a higher level of radiation. They put that story out there. How accurate that is, I don't know, but they're actually saying the EPA even detected a gamma exposure event in New York City area, according to RadNet and stuff. So that concerns me. But here's the other thing. And Commander, you sent this thing and you caught it, and I'm glad you did. Governor Hochul now has deployed over 750 National Guard troops to New York City. And she says, well, now we got to protect the subway. For 3 freaking years, we've had people thrown in the subway, stabbed on the subway, shot on the subway. She couldn't give a rat's ass. Now, all of a sudden, she goes, well, I guess we had better do something about this. That's horseshit. You know, she is not, could care less about that subway. So that frightens me that not only are they looking for something that they can't find, because usually they can jump right on this, but they are getting ready for an event. You have to get people in place for an event. Am I correct on that, Commander?
Yeah. There's a couple things that I want to add in there and get all three of you reaction. So no crisis is wasted. We understand that. And no manufactured crisis is ever wasted. There is no doubt, if you look at this and if you step back, the playbook that we're seeing here on how this is being reported, how the old style media and then the online media is reporting this is very similar to all other UAP events. There was very small rumble in the beginning about this. Then there is the almost explosion of information. Then you have additional reports coming in because now you have more people looking to the sky, so that they're reporting everything. And despite this face statement that we don't want to have people get concerned, I think we do want people concerned. I think we want people on edge. I think we want people to be wrapped up in this. And I can't help but believe that every person that watching this show and every click on a search engine is being gathered to see where this conversation is going. And I don't think that is by accident. I've talked about the crowdsourcing kind of intelligence gathering. It's probably the most prevalent and hottest thing going on these days, because it allows you to use the number one tool that people are absolutely wired to, the internet, be it a phone, computer, and that tracking. The fact that the guy that and I think it's a pretty chilling video. I agree with you, Chris. The UAV that's the drone company manufacturer who kind of called it out and said, this is what it looks like to me, and I make these kinds of vehicles. The fact that he did it on TikTok amazes me, considering who owns the paper on TikTok.
Yeah,
and where that goes and what happens when you get on TikTok, and the kind of thing that he's complaining about, he's kind of right in the dragon's den with it. But I cannot help but, when I step back, look at the parallels of what has gone on with the disclosure meetings, the Capitol Hill hearings on UAPs, extraterrestrial phenomena, even the people that have testified are inserting themselves into this, using the credentials of, I was in the military, I spoke in front of Congress, I testified in front of Congress, and then the ultimate line that comes out. Someone very close to this has told me that it's absolutely not this, it's absolutely this. So immediately now we have people that are celebrity in this whole pantheon that's going on, that are coming out and weighing into this. But the one thing that no one is disputing, these vehicles are flying, these vehicles are operating. And of course, the thing that throws me off, Padre, on this, when I look at this, I think it's really convenient that everyone has got their lights on. If you want to make this not a sensational event, you would fly late at night, early morning hours. You may have your lights on until you clear some kind of airspace. But once you get into a grid and you close out the area where the grid is at, you go as dark as you possibly can. You would not put lights on unless you had to have air traffic control separation. In part, I as a pilot, I understand that. Or if you're looking to attract attention, I have heard the oral signal on these vehicles is very, very light. It's very small. People are not there, and the various sizes that are being reported. There's a lot of variance, as big as a vehicle, a car type vehicle, but the sounding tends to be very quiet, as reported, or people hearing other things in the air, other aircraft like helicopters, jets, and stuff like that, and these things are moving around. So if they wanted to cloak in darkness, I think they could get away with it.
Sure.
Why are they not?
That's a $1 million question.
Don't they have to have I understand some can fly a pre-programmed route,
right?
But doesn't there have to be someone somewhere behind a set of controls managing this flight path? And wouldn't they have to have theoretically a line of sight in order to be able to see what their vehicle is doing?
Nowadays, especially with the sophistication that's going on, you could have ground units set up that would blanket an area. So just like your cell phone, as the vehicle moves into another region, you put your commands over. If they are autonomous, you're just monitoring reports that would come out on a computer screen. So you would launch it off. It would follow a predetermined pattern that was programmed in. Then it has some onboard sensors, so if something else got close to it, it would either stop flying or it would divert around it, return back and come back to the point that it came off its search grid, and then resume that search grid. And you would just be looking at a computer screen.
Interesting.
But you're thinking on the larger vehicles like Predators and Shadows and those larger unmanned systems, those are actively being flown by someone on the ground. And you have to have line of sight, or maybe you could do it through satellite in some cases, or you can do it through other latent. Like the Predators are flown in Nevada over someplace else in Europe or the Middle East or Africa, and it's all done by satellite linking to get the vehicle to have the controls. You have a little latency, obviously, but that's how it works.
Commander,
So-
can I add one thing in that
Absolutely.
I just thought of, and this is kind of, excuse me, frightening, is that, the Congress has been briefed on this. They had a secret briefing
Today,
just a couple of days ago. Now, we all know what happens at secret briefings. Not more than 5 minutes when it's over, it gets leaked out to the press. Nothing got leaked out to the press. That's more frightening than anything else to me, because it had to be so scary for them. And I'm just assuming this, that they don't even want to leak it out. There was no leaks on this. And New York City PD hasn't said a word about this. The New
Right.
Jersey State Police haven't said a word about this. There's no comments coming from NYPD or New Jersey law enforcement about what they figure on it. So either they're shut out, they're not in the loop, or they've been told to keep their mouth shut.
so Chris, you're absolutely right, and I don't disagree at all that it's one of two situations. I think initially, most of the law enforcement at the state and municipal level was probably not clued in on what this was or what was going on. And it could be a lot of reasons for that. You're just hoping for a really quick hit, find what you're looking for, and be over with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it didn't work out that way. Or there's something more extensive going on. And then you had early on reports of police, law enforcement seeing this, law enforcement helicopters, not engaging, but getting in the area, and then they couldn't get closer. There was even a law enforcement a drone. I'm sorry, I always keep going back to the UAS because that's the way the military likes to refer to drones. It's like UFO, UAP. Everybody's got their their vernacular they like to have in there. They flew towards these things to see if they could get close enough to get a better picture of what's going on.
But
And they,
Commander, if they
and
were
then it
briefed
dropped
on
off,
this,
right? To me, that sounds like official word being passed.
right? But if they were briefed on this, Commander, they wouldn't even send. If they were briefed and said, "Hey, listen, this is what's going on. Keep your helicopters away from this and stuff." I mean, wouldn't that be the logical thing?
Sure. And it's obviously initially they didn't do that. And for what reason did they not do that? I can only speculate that they either thought this was going to be very, very quick, very, very easy, that they could do this with impunity and not have a lot of disclosure or be discovered, or things have gotten further down the line of operation, and now they're coming back and fessing up whatever is going on and trying to put a stamp on it. Again, going back to what Don said, this is either evil genius or it's Keystone Cops for something serious. If it's evil genius, we're all being played. It's the big psyop. There is multiple sideshows. There is diversion of attention. There's disinformation. Or we have a really serious situation. I don't dispute that there's something serious going on.
Oh, absolutely.
And we are fumbling around trying to figure out. So if it's not a DOD entity that's behind this, and it is another agency or another contracted event from another agency that hasn't coordinated, and this is what's going on, this only gets worse when you lie. I think most people that are listening to this show would probably been a lot more comfortable if somebody came on, like Kirby, and came on and said, we have a situation. We cannot divulge the situation in detail at this time. Active methods, all the standard phrases that we like to pull out of the bag of tricks to go forward on that, and have updates. But remember, we have come out. We're a different nation. We're a different world, but we're a different nation post-COVID. And the things that happened during COVID, the things that the public were subjected to, participated in, and divided on. And I can't help But when I look at this, look how the UAP discussion has been handled, especially in the last 5-6 years, how the, especially with these hearings. And now we have this event going on. I think it's just conveniently being run. Don, you agree with me, or you think I'm off?
No, I think you're right on the money. Look, I've been fooled by experts over the years. Okay, and I can smell a fraud usually when it's being perpetrated. I smell a hell of a big fraud here. Now, where it's going to ultimately go, I don't know. But I guess we're going to find out in the next 3 or 4 weeks, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yep, I think so. There's just so many things that keep popping up here that just that you can just not ignore. Go ahead, Patrick.
I think that if we step back and just look at the overall whole picture here with the drone and a tool, 10 years ago, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion at this level. But the technology is now such that anybody can go into a store and for $100 acquire a flying machine that has a camera on it, let it take off from their backyard or anywhere else and fly it wherever they want to with, there are a few airspace.
Well, they would never do that without the license and proper training.
Of course not, Commander. Of course not. Now, back in the experience that we had in southern Nebraska Panhandle in late 2019, December 2019, it began much as this flap did. We started seeing these things in the sky about 2 hours after sunset, and everybody was seeing them. And initially, they were sniffing around grain elevators and railroad terminals and some of the smaller towns. That particular part of the country is the place where our intercontinental ballistic missile systems are siloed. I had a farm in the southern Nebraska Panhandle. 400 yards from the end of my driveway was a Minuteman III missile underground. And I had a nice view of the enclosure there. You have a perfectly square wire fence, all sorts of electronics there. And every once in a while, an armored Humvee would appear in my driveway with a belt-fed 40-millimeter automatic grenade launcher, just to kind of keep an eye on things. Now, just down the road, about 3 miles, there was one of the launch control centers. And this is where you actually have airmen who are based underground. They're maintaining a full watch on the nuclear alert status. And they're those gentlemen that have to turn their keys simultaneously and send Armageddon on its way should it come to that. So this is a pretty sensitive area militarily. Now these drone things started appearing over the military nuclear installations. I could see them from my picture window in my living room. And yet the Air Force continually denied that there were any kind of drone activities going on, that they had investigated and they couldn't see anything, even though everybody around is looking at it like, do you have eyes, gentlemen? It's there. What started to happen as this began to build in the local media is reports began to come in then of grid pattern searches, where they were flying rectangular, evenly spaced grids over fields looking for something. And so that led me to theorize, maybe this is a two-part thing. You have one unit of drones that their objective is to capture the eyes of the public. So everybody's, looking over there when the real business is being done over there by other drones at a lower altitude, because the grid flying drones were relatively low to the ground, just above the height of the telephone poles. So, you're 50 feet off the ground there. And so as they would fly these things, ranchers would call them in, and there was the usual stuff. Some guy would say, well, one of those shows up on my property, I'm going to shoot it. And then, the sheriff would say no. And when we integrate with the local law enforcement, which you guys have been talking about here, all we have out there is the local sheriff. And we have counties that are the size of some eastern states. And on any given night, you might have 3 or 4 guys, or 3 or 4 guys and a gal that are in charge of law enforcement in that vast geographic area. They got enough to do. So when the reports started coming in of these, what people were calling drones, because of the ability to stop, hover for a while, move a little bit, and also the relatively low altitude. At first, law enforcement locally was skeptical, and they're like, "What are people?" But then the deputies started to see it, and finally the sheriffs started to see them. And what happened one night was very telling, in that we started to receive reports of unmarked white panel vans way out in remote areas, just parked there. Now, a pickup truck by the side of the road, not a big deal out in that area. A spotlessly clean panel van without plates or markings, that kind of stands out. And so one of the sheriffs across the border in Colorado, he actually put out to the public in his county, said, "This is far too suspicious. I want you people, if you encounter one of these vans, to photograph it, video it, call us. We'll get a deputy out there. I want to know everything about these vans to see if they're connected." The next morning, he's on local media, visibly shaken, saying, "Whatever I told you last night, don't do." So what does that tell you about what's going on?
Well, again, I think your actual experience, which I think everybody here remembers. I had a number of people out in the Central Plains that contacted me. "You guys have to do a show. You got to come out here and look at this. This is amazing. These things are flying all over the place." Now, a lot of the activity that was reported didn't have the specificity that you're putting on around the Minuteman site and the activity and this layering, but it makes complete sense that you have a diversion, that you have that. Is that what's happening in the on the East Coast right now? Do we have vehicles that are lit? So that's what you're looking at, and that's what's being photographed. Why other activity is going on? Very, very possible. Very possible.
Well, I got to tell you, I am shocked that by now, this has been going on a month, a little over a month, that Billy Ray or Jim Bob hadn't gone out there with their deer rifle and tried to shoot one down.
They have.
I truly am shocked.
They have.
Shoot one down. We do have one that crashed, correct?
Yeah.
And it was recovered by a hazmat team.
Yeah, I thought the one that crashed, they found out was a toy. It was a hobby one that crashed. And see, that's just the thing. Friend or foe identification. Are you just going to shoot anything with lights in the sky? Good heavens, that's horribly irresponsible and illegal, to say the least.
Oh, absolutely. The same thing by putting lasers.
When did illegality ever come into the question?
Well, we do have a regulation in this country. You're not supposed to shoot at aircraft.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's
well,
when
let me tell you a quick little story. At the height of the cattle mutilation business, all right, Kevin Randall, okay, friend of mine, you guys all know who he is, longtime UFO researcher, primarily known for Roswell, okay, was in the Air Guard. He's a chopper pilot. He flew choppers in Vietnam. Was on a flight flying over, this was, I believe, in Colorado, was flying some mission. He had already been to Vietnam, was back, and suddenly, ping, ping, bang, ping. They were shooting at his chopper, okay, from the ground.
Right.
They were shooting because the ranchers, which were trying to protect their cattle from all these mutilation cases, thought he might be a quote unquote black helicopter. So, you know what, Padre? You know, illegal, nah, that doesn't really go into it. No.
Well, without crossing the line too far,
yeah.
When you look at New Jersey, this parts of where I just don't see a lot of people having weapons or feeling comfortable to shoot.
Yeah.
When you get out further west or you come up my way, I can see that happening a little bit more. That's why the laser activity has become so prevalent, because people are trying to put lasers on them to see them, to disrupt the system. He can disrupt optically what's going on, and that's dangerous because with the mix of aircraft. And again, is this on purpose? Maybe, because it would allow what? Now you have, I was talking with Skywatcher, where he is in Orange County. There is a no flying any drones, any of your personal UAVs, sometime into late January, mid or late January. No flying. The airspace is closed. And now you're seeing this pop up in more places. And if people don't observe that, or if people do start to get more frisky in their response, because they feel threatened, that's going to give a lot of people that are just itching a reason to go further. And I think that's why I think this is all tied in. I don't think that there's any one element of this is the aha. And I pray that we don't get the aha moment in a way that we don't want to have happen. But one more thing I want to throw in before we go to the break, and we're getting close to the top of the show. We have a special musical gift from our producer, Bill Skywatcher, that put something together that we're going to play out as it goes to the top of the commercial. We'll pick it up on the backside. What really got my attention, and there's if the audience only knew the amount of prep material that I sent out to these three gentlemen over the last couple of days. And I'm not even well rested. I'm really hanging on by a thread with the kind of week that I had. Is when President-elect Trump said he's not coming up to the golf course in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of stuff to unpack in that one item. Love him, hate him. Makes no difference to me at this point. That's not my point. He's had a couple of what I would call standard Trumpian responses to shoot him down. The government knows what's going on, so I think he's actually putting out some important information. But why is he concerned enough that he would not come up to New Jersey to go to his?
Now, normally he would be briefed as the incoming new administration.
And is he being?
He did not address that.
Right. And no one has asked him, which I find surprisingly interesting as well. And he's in front of the press more. He has not been directly asked, have you been briefed? They've asked him what his opinion is. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say, on that note, there's two things. One, Biden, I don't think has been briefed properly, because when he is asked, and I mean, his mental state is just such, he goes, there's only one drone, I think, right? He actually said that to the press. And I think everybody looked at him like a deer in headlights, like, oh my God, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That's number one. Number two, and Commander, you something clicked, and I says, we have all this trouble down at the border. We've had all these illegals come in. We've had Chinese single-tary men in like this. Suppose this isn't a coincidence. Suppose this is all planned to make us fight internally, to make us fight on our soil for this time. Because this could be this. Look, Trump's going to change things, and they're scared to death about that. There's no question he's going to shake up the military. He's going to shake up the FBI. He's going to shake up the Beltway. And there's people who don't like that. And you could say that, hey, you put out a dirty bomb, let these terrorists, they know there's terrorists in the country. They know they're here to do harm to us. I don't think this is coincidence. I think this thing is a pre-planned attack. It's going to happen.
I pray you're incorrect. I mean, I really do. I hope that isn't the case. But I got to say, the buzz that I'm hearing from various sources agrees with that, Chris. That they're saying something in January or February.
Guns are smuggled into the country now.
Yeah.
Military people are being smuggled into the country. We know it. The Border Patrol's been. They're shooting at the Border Patrol agents now down there. They're green lighting to kill cops and Border Patrol agents. That's all part of a plan to destruct.
They have been fighting with drones on the
Yep.
U.S.-Mexico border for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
We've just watched everything that's gone on in the Ukraine. And quite honestly, I think most nefarious agents would love to have the TikTok or YouTube video of a small drone chasing someone, like you've seen with the Russian that's being chased by a drone in a vehicle, or the tank going into the hatch or the door or the cab and exploding. I think that you can only imagine how many times that would be played. So now, is this to prevent the turnover of power? Is this to so that you can have something happen and not do this? I mean, if anyone understands the Constitution, and I know that's becoming a smaller and smaller glee club out there these days, the president and the vice president elect, all they have to do is go to a Supreme Court justice and take it. It doesn't have to be done on TV. It doesn't have to be done in front of the Capitol building. They take the oath, and that's where it happens. Now, if the complete turmoil is going on, well, it's going to make that difficult. And I can, with AI and all the other stuff, it's easy to go down the path of that. If it's to continue the attempts that have, the two attempts that we know of, the third that's been talked about against Trump, and this is part of it, to setting it up, or Chris, to get just the base issue that you're talking about, to have the big event, Christmas, a huge holiday in this country, religious for many. On the secular side, it's a huge event that's going on we prepare, and the new year that's coming on. All those factors are there. And if you step back and look at this in the parts and the things that are out there and the personalities, the people that are now becoming more vocal with hey, I talked to somebody. I can't tell you who, but they told me it's absolutely not this. And you have a public that is extremely doubtful about everything. What's that old line? I know you're lying because I see your lips moving.
Are you talking about Admiral Kirby?
No, I would never say that about a retired flag officer.
Okay.
I would.
I got an itchy on my neck. That's all.
Yeah.
All that is. All right, we got a couple minutes to go. We'll run to the song, and we go to our first break. I'm getting a couple. I think I got a couple emails. I'm trying to check comments. I apologize. I can't engage in the comment section. Once again, I've been blocked out of engaging, but I see that the Padre and Chris are talking with folks. A big hello to Jocko, who's in the audience. He's on Chris's show from time to time. Former NYPD law enforcement officer that is now.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He is.
Awesome.
And he's down in, I spoke to him earlier today. He's down in South Carolina. One last thing as we run up to the break, and I'm going to have it on the other side. Did anybody hear about the balloon that went from South Dakota right over the top of this at 65,000 feet?
Yep. But it was not enough.
Oh, don't give it away, Padre. Don't give it away.
Oh,
you got to have a cliffhanger to get them to show up on the other side of the break.
Okay. How about a high speed?
Have another spy balloon that's gone over the top. Or should I do?
Sorry to pop your balloon.
No, oh, wow. You had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
How's that basketball doing? For those that don't know, Padre's doing pretty well, but he's balancing himself on a basketball right now.
Yeah.
He had hip surgery. Had a hip replacement.
Yeah.
And that's why he's got that very cherub-like look on his face all the time.
I really need to stand, but I'm not wearing pants, so I won't.
That could really help our ratings.
No, it wouldn't.
We'll see you on the flip side, folks. Please enjoy the song. Special Christmas present from our producer, Skywatcher.
Lights appear above the horizon, flashing in steady formation. Humming as they move along, activity spreads across the nation. People stare in wonder. What could these these actually be? A PSYOP operation, an adversarial intrusion coming from the sea. No one knows the answers. Government denying a threat. Society demanding answers. A cover-up is what I bet. Flying above our neighborhoods without any consent. Origin of flight unknown, or ideas of where they went. Violating airspace, moving at their own will. Who and what is behind this false flag operation drill? A sense of false security. What is the source of these drones? Bases and assets on high alert as they enter the no-fly zone. Tired on all the non-answers. Told to remain calm, not to fear. What are we to believe? The truth is what we want to hear. No more lies from our government. Trust diminished over time. Officials bluster with frustration. Denial is the true crime. What will it take for action? Who will stand for the truth? Will it be our next president? Transparency presenting the proof. We tire of the status quo. It's time for us to stand. We may finally get our answers. Security in our homeland. Violating airspace, moving at their own will. Who and what is behind this false flag operation drill? A sense of false security. What is the source of these drones? Bases and assets on high alert as they enter the no-fly zone.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
So while we're on the break, I had a funny moment. I took a step out of the magic library that you see in the background, and I bumped into Mrs. Cobra, who says to me, "What are you doing out here?" I thought you had a show. And it was kind of that derogatory, you better get back in there and get to your show. I said, "I'm on a commercial break." "You have commercials?" So before we jump in, and return to
where does she think all the big checks come from?
Yeah, exactly. It's obvious by the settings that all four of us have in the background. We're rolling in that cash. I wanted to throw in there that I meant to get this in the first part of the show. Congratulations to Mr. Tom Cruise for receiving the medal, the United States Navy Distinguished Personal Service Award. I thought that was very fitting. He's done some incredible movies. Obviously, the Top Gun series, the two movies there were a huge boon to the Navy, but overall the military. And I'm really happy to see that happen. He gets, as any big star like he does, gets some pretty interesting press that's pretty negative. But I think he really does work very hard to make those movies work the way they did. And I know that when he was doing one of the Mission Impossibles, someone recorded him. He had figured out a way to get filming going during the COVID protocols that were on and what they had to do. And he was putting people back to work when everything had ground to a halt. So a quick salute to Mr. Cruise. He's always welcome to join us here on the show and give us his input on drones. And if he catches that, or if his agent catches it, just drop me an email, and then I'll get you. My people will get my number to your people's number, and we can chat. And as always, I will name drop. Yes, Michael Bay can tell you. I'll leave it at that. Hey, Chris, you had a graphic because you had a little event going up on your part of the country, not a drone, but an interesting infrastructure security thing going on.
You're talking about this graph right here. Yeah. I'm not sure, but there's a Chinook that's flying around a nuclear power plant. It's not a drone. It's a helicopter, but my understanding that they have nuclear sniffers that are helicopters that they can circle a grid area and do it. So I guess this is alarming to me because obviously this is not a normal thing. I mean, I used to live very close to there, and there was no helicopters flying around this nuclear power plant. So this is an unusual event, but there's a lot of unusual events. I honestly said, I was thinking during the break, I think Trump is going to become a wartime president. I think Don said that before January 20th, something may kick off. And I think they are going to try to disrupt things in the United States so we cannot do certain things. If we have internal strife here, how are we going to be able to put ICE in control of getting rid of all these illegal aliens and the Tren de Agua gang and the cartels and the Chinese military people? It's going to be very difficult to do that if we are battling on our home front. So I think that's a difficult thing. The other thing is I don't think the American people are prepared for a crisis. You know, every time we had a crisis, it was a singular place. You know, it was in the Beltway. During 9/11 was in Washington. They had the Pentagon. They had, the Twin Towers there. It was just, compared to the whole country, it was a small area. California didn't get hit. Nevada didn't get hit. Any of those places. This is a whole different ballgame now, because these people are spread throughout the United States. And if they start hitting malls, shopping malls, food stores, and transportation and different things, it can turn into a big chaos. And that's what I'm really worried about. And, we're not prepared for it. We're just not prepared for it.
So let me ask you this, as a couple of former local Leos who worked in some pretty large metropolitan areas. What we're seeing with this proliferation of drones and what we've seen online from Ukraine on how they can be used. In a what if scenario, let's say nefarious actors do decide to drone swarm targets in large metro areas. Do these cities have anything for countermeasures against something like that?
Funny you should say that, Padre, because it had the news that they blocked the drone bill. They said there's not enough transparency about it, and the drone bill that they tried to get into this was just blocked, because it's just like they were using other things, the Patriot Act. They were using things we didn't know, and people are afraid they're going to abuse this too. And ultimately turn it on the American people. So they blocked it until they get more transparency on it.
Look at how they've used things like the Patriot Act. All right.
Some of the worst legislation this country has ever done. And it has a direct impact. Terrible stuff. Go ahead, Don, sir.
Examining parents at parent-teacher conferences for being disturbed and upset about what the schools are doing. These people were put on potential terrorist lists. Okay, talk about an abuse of power, an abuse by the Department of Justice, an abuse of citizens' rights. Okay, and virtually nobody, and I mean nobody, really came forward screaming about that. Why? Were they afraid that they would get put on a list? It's just bad business.
Well, again, we have just gone through a most difficult period. And again, I'm not trying to show sides where I think most people can figure out where I'm coming from. I tend to be a guy who's very deep into the Constitution. I figure everything is there that I need to keep things together. And John, we are going to talk about the artwork behind you before this show's over. I just saw the heel and the ankle, and I do want to make sure we get a mention on that, because I know I'm going to get emails. I'm going to get letters about it, and I want to make sure I mention it. But you're correct. People are concerned about this because they just don't know what's going to happen, what will happen to them if they put their hand up. But we've talked about this weaponization of almost every aspect of our life that's gone on, and it's no different. But I think the UAP hearings, the UAP process that we've been going through, the AHIP, all the things that have been going on, the people and the personalities that have gone out there, I'm starting to see another side why we've had so much governmental interest in talking about these events. Because it's brought a lot of process to the table for what we're up against right now. Trying to
well, just so everybody is aware, you are, I'm sure, very aware that this show and the personalities on this show are being examined and have been examined to the nth degree.
No doubt.
We have. Oh.
Yep.
Hey, I want to interject some crossfire here because I felt like Don and Chris dodged my question. Which was.
This is the ghost of Christmas present. Here's the ghost of Christmas present doing a little.
All right, bring it on, Padre. What
okay,
what do we
holy
do?
roller. Holy roller.
Do our law enforcement personnel in large metro areas have any kind of capability to interdict, prevent, stop a drone attack?
And let me answer you directly.
Yes, please.
You must be kidding. After the defund the police thing, which has been going on for years, we are short hundreds of cops. Take a look in New York City, for God's sake. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of cops, they're down. All right.
That must be why the governor brought the National Guard.
So if they don't have enough cops, do you really think they're going to have availability to anti-drone technology?
Padre, I'm going to jump in. Let me jump in real quick, Padre.
All right.
The local, municipal, and state law enforcement officers do have kinetic means to bring down drones.
Right.
Okay. Shotguns and handguns and long rifles can do the job.
Yep.
Yeah.
The problem that they have with this situation is twofold. One is these are our vehicles, so we don't want them shot at. And the second thing is, if they go down in urban areas and it's an aircraft crashing, we have enough lawyers in this country that if you threw one at every drone, you'd still have too many lawyers.
Oh, dear.
And my point is the liability that would come out after this, because unlike the pharmaceutical companies who got the pass on some of their more genius medical protocols that have been passed, that hasn't been passed yet. I will tell you that the United States military has developed a number of anti-drone because of what's happened in Ukraine. It's ramped up even more. Mm-hmm. And it extends from everything from nets that extend over hangars just to tangle up the devices to very sophisticated electromagnetic spectrum kind of operations to disrupt their signaling, to disrupt their tracking, to cause them to go into a wait until they get signal mode again, as we were talking in the first hour about how they operate, if it's a live operator or if it's on some kind of autonomous. So there are things out there, but they're not widespread. And there is a great concern to engage these and cause grievous damage on the ground.
Because what goes up ultimately comes down.
A military source recently told me that Japan, law enforcement in the bigger cities, have drones that are outfitted with anti-drone countermeasures, specifically weighted nets.
Yep.
The reason that they did this is the drug runners in the bigger cities of Japan were using that as a means to deliver their product to the dealers.
Where do you think some of these bigger online companies got the idea delivered right to your door?
I don't know which came
first. It didn't start with Amazon and pizza.
In that chicken or egg thing, I don't know which came first. But anyway, reportedly, there were certain elements of the police in Japan that found this incredibly fun. They really liked to do it. It was like being able to play video games and take down the enemy. And of course, but then again, we're talking about drones that are your typical, quadcopter from Walmart that, might lift a half a pound. And if they go down, they might muss somebody's hair. But that's an example, I guess, of local law enforcement having that kind of capability. When we talk about United States law enforcement, guys, this is for Chris and Don again. Are there even any rules of engagement? Let's say an officer is at a mall and he sees an incoming swarm of drones.
No.
Can he engage them?
No, there's no. First of all, Padre, you got to remember it depends on the size of the police department. Does a place like NYPD have a drone team? Yes, they do.
Okay.
And stuff. But now when you get to other areas and you get like villages and town police departments, they don't have that capability. They would have to rely on the federal government, and they would call them in to bring in that type of capability, like the FBI or the marshals or something of that nature. So they don't have any SOPs for drones, because we really haven't seen an attack until just now of drones being anything that could be potentially hostile. Now we have that thing, and the governor of New York and the mayor of New York City are asking for this type of stuff. I don't think they're getting it. Schumer's asked for it. Hochul's asked for it. Things of that nature. I think what's ever happening is so compartmentalized, because when we have secrets, we compartmentalize them. Just because you have a top secret clearance doesn't mean you're going to be read into whatever is going on. And I think this thing is got just eyes only to a certain amount of people. And I honestly believe now
it's the UAP protocol once again that's going on.
Right, exactly. I think this is a DOE operation, Department of Energy operation. It's compartmentalized to nest teams or whatever.
And they are even more secret than the CIA or the NSA, DOE.
Yeah, you have no idea what they're doing. Other than those are the guys that have Area 51 in their purview. Yeah.
And so this is
your question is no.
And this is what is of particular concern to me, is that you have, the American people by and large just want to live life and not be bothered by anybody. Just leave us alone. And when they start to feel threatened or frightened by something, and they see ineptitude or lackadaisical response to what their perceived threat is, they'll tend to take action, unfortunately. And I'm not advocating that anybody do anything stupid here. I'm just warning that if we don't have some official capacity, department, person, agency, whatever, get a handle on this and calm people down and let them know that there really is no danger, and here's why. Give us a little something.
But they're not saying that, Padre.
Yeah, they need to.
Well, here's the biggest elephant in the room. Who in the hell's running the country right now?
Crickets.
So, what if the objective is then just the opposite? To set the stage, to keep rising, to keep the pressure coming up, to make the temperature continue to rise. That's when I look at this. This has got that classic kind of look. I think I talked about this once before on the show with you guys. The CIA looked at the culture in Vietnam, and they realized that there was a vulnerability with the North Vietnamese soldiers and the Viet Cong. They had a huge fear that if they died and their body wasn't properly put near ancestral ground, their soul would wander the earth. So they put people in airplanes. They made recordings of haunting sounds and translators to put out messages at night from airplanes flying overhead that if you die, you're not near your village, you're not near your ancestral lands, and your soul will wander forever. They had an active program trying to get the edge, to get more and more people to defect and not fight and go AWOL so that they would bring numbers down. And there was proof that there was some level of effectiveness. In Afghanistan, we used females in gunships to broadcast over the radio in feminine voices to the Taliban that it was a woman that was going to shoot them, get under their hide to cause them. Okay, we're smiling. We're thinking this is great stuff. Are we on the receiving end of something like that right now? And you cannot look at this and dismiss it completely.
No.
So
No,
let me
you're
ask you
on
this, guys.
something, Bruce.
If
You're
this
on
is the case, if this is a big psyop, and I don't know, it could very well be.
Connected to a real event, Padre, is what I'm saying.
How should the average American people react to and respond to what's going on right now?
I'm going to make you cry. I'll probably cause our other two co-hosts to nod a little bit. We need to go back to what this country used to be. And what I mean by that is we used to have some kind of moral code. Now, for many of us, that was tied to some kind of religious program that we thought that. We have strayed off that. We made it impossible to do what we did on the founding of this country. And I'm not saying that it's a perfect model, because anything created by man is going to come up short. I'm not going off that line. But we are no longer connected to the core things that we need to have. And one of them is you have to have a moral code. I have many friends that are atheists, that are moral people. I can trust them completely. They'll always do the right thing. I'm amazed because I guess I feel like I have to have a belief in a deity to help me drive to do those things and correct me when I go off. Like when I get angry with Don because, Don, doesn't like the bourbon I sent him and doesn't realize how hard I worked. Okay. I'm just trying to lighten it because it is the holiday show. I mean, it's the show before the remembrance of the birth of my Lord and Savior. But I mean, there's stuff going on. I mean, and Don's got he's got the great lampshade, the great lamp from A Christmas Story behind him. I mean, there's a lot of icons here. But if you want to know, Padre, where I think we're off, we're not seeing ourselves as Americans anymore.
Okay, so
don't take responsibility for the good as well as the bad. Because when you take responsibility, you will correct the bad.
In the schools today, okay, the influence being brought by educators is basically the United States of America is a bad country. We are oppressors. We've done this. We've done that. We annihilated the Native American, all that kind of stuff. And it angers me, personally, that absolutely no historical reference or logic is involved in any of that. Students are being taught to hate everything the USA stands for. Now, I don't know about you guys. I think I have an idea what your opinion is, but that just crossed me to the nth degree. Gentlemen, and it starts in the schools. That must change.
Let me give you some hope.
Yeah, but we know that there are certain factions within this country that want to see this country burned to the ground.
Yeah.
And it started with defunding the police, trying to get rid of the police, Antifa being able to burn cities down. We let that go unjustly. And now I want to bring back something that you were saying. Who's running the country? Well, I mean, we got problems because the president says there's only one drone in the sky. What's the big deal? He says there's nothing there. And Kamala Harris is going on television where news reporters think she's either high or drunk. I mean, this is the vice president of the United States where news reporters are making fun of her because they honestly think that she's been tipping a few before she goes on stage.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, our enemies are going to take advantage of us. Of course, they're going to start doing nefarious things because you got Ice Cream Brain that's sitting in the White House, and you got this fruit salad that can't put a sentence together. It's thinking that she's going to run in 2028. Oh, God, I hope I die before that. And
I hope she does.
No, not her, me. I don't want to be around with that.
No. I hope she runs in 28.
Gentlemen, prepare to be boarded. The pressure has been building up in the Padre here for the last 2 minutes, so here it comes. I'm hopeful, and I'll tell you why. For the last 2 decades, we have seen the erosion of key institutions that have held our nation together: the family, the church, and the community. And these have been systematically torn down by our enemies not just of our system of government, but the enemies of our very soul. So what we've seen, especially through this last election season, is that nobody trusts these institutions anymore. They're looking for somebody they can trust. They're looking for something that they can hang their hat on. And I don't know if you heard this news story that came out last week, but the sales of the Bible are spiking all across America, up 22% year after year. And not just digital Bibles, but physical, hard copies.
Yeah, I heard Bibles and Glocks.
Well, okay, an interesting combination. And yes,
That's true.
I may have a hollowed out Bible with a Glock in my office, or I may not. But in any case, what we're seeing is people beginning to hunger for something more solid. And they're going back to what they knew their parents knew. And that was getting involved in a community church, getting involved in community organizations like the Lions Club or the Elks Club or the Moose Club or whatever club there is that actually does things within their local community. Our high school here is filled with great kids because we don't let any of that crap come into our school system. And we have people on our school board who are gatekeepers and keep it at bay. And they leave knowing their civics, knowing the way government works, knowing what it means to be an American. And there are these little islands of light all across America. What we're seeing here, connecting it to the UAP thing, if this is a PSYOP and they're wanting to know, are they ready for disclosure? I think that the behavior of many people has demonstrated maybe we're not as ready as some people thought we were. And we need to re-examine each one of us our own behavior. We can only fight this battle with the people that we interact with on a daily basis. And so I would plead with you, if you have fallen off and lost hope and don't trust anything anymore, give some consideration in 2025 to changing that by getting involved in your community, getting involved in a church, synagogue, or temple, getting involved in a community organization, whatever it is, but start to know who lives next to you and talk to them.
Rifle range.
Yeah, I'm a member of that too. And so great conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, because here I just pulled up, and when you said that about conspiracies and everything, they're now talking, the Hollywood elites are talking about Project Bluebeam. This has got to be Project Bluebeam. I'm reading this here, and it posted, government is faking an alien invasion to usher in the Antichrist and one world government.
That actually is
New York Post.
Yep. That is circulating in the religious community.
Absolutely.
That this is preparing us for the rise of a one world government, and that there may be a connection. We talk about these USOs, unidentified submerged objects. Are they UAP too? I forget what we're supposed to be calling them. But you look at the book of Revelation, and it talks about strange beings coming up out of the ocean that begin to interact with the Antichrist and lead humanity astray. I mean,
there were reports in these events of some of these drones coming out of the water off the coast of New Jersey. Now, again, you don't have a lot of you don't have any pictures, you don't have a lot of folks, but again, things that are known in the mainstream about this are all being thrown into this. Mm-hmm. But Padre, I agree with you completely that until we start thinking of ourselves as a nation of people,
yep,
and we go back to having some kind of a nation of laws, not a nation of men, but a nation of laws. And I know that's uncomfortable for a lot of folks, but that's really the bedrock that holds it together. We got to find that. But I'm bringing it back to the banner of this show. If I look at the scope of what has gone on for the last 4, 5, 6 years on UAPs and how they have been discussed, disclosed, debriefed, presented, the government interest. It seems to be a process playbook that is happening now in a slightly different scale. And what I mean by that is you have the reports. You have government officials that are coming out giving different statements. You have classified briefings, as Chris put up. Nothing was leaked out of the classified briefing.
That's unusual.
Yeah, it is unusual unless you're smart enough to know and you're running this thing that we need to get the most bang for the buck here. So we're not going to have any of the leaks. We're going to wait for the leaks where they fit in there. But nothing that is going on with this is different from the same thing that's been going on since the 60s with Project Blue Book and all the other things, Mockingbird, Moonbeam, all those things that we know later on, those files have opened up and we see that going on. But I am tired of the self-appointed betters amongst us determining what I can know and not know. That's always going to be the edge here.
All right, let me ask you a question, Commander.
And I do have a funny
story
story
to
that
everybody.
I want to get back. I want to get a funny story inserted to lighten up the mood because it's a holiday.
Okay.
It's a holiday show.
Well, hey, go ahead. I mean, I'm waiting for the nuclear explosion to happen.
All right, so before the mushroom clouds show up here, do you remember Chernobyl, that horrible event?
Yeah, that's a great Christmas story.
Great Christmas. I love this. Gonna love
Chernobyl. He told me he wants to lighten up the mood. Hey, let's talk about Chernobyl.
All right,
so,
I'm stationed in Germany. The East Germany and West Germany still exist. The Iron Curtain's still there. The whole 9 yards. So we're running around, and it's getting more and more fever pitched. People wouldn't let their kids out outside when it was raining because they was worried about radioactivity. There was the talk about what's going to happen to the beer because it's going to get into the hops, and the hops is going to be made into the beer. What's going to happen? I mean, it was great. So people wanted action. They wanted stuff to get done. I'm flying a helicopter at the time. And you asked this earlier, Chris, about helicopters normally, or sometimes helicopters do this. I wasn't a nest team. I was a tactical air support squadron. We did everything from forward air control to moving heavy equipment with the helicopters. They gave us Geiger counters. They sent us up to the edge of the clouds. We lowered the ramp on the helicopter. We had the Geiger counter sitting out there, and we would fly around and see if the Geiger counter went up because we had to do something, okay? And after 2-3 nights of this, and I mean flying all hours of the night because we didn't want to disturb people. They wanted us to fly at night. They wanted to have information. They wanted to be able to tell the public something because, and there's obviously bad Soviets, this has happened, everything going on. So I take one of those chem sticks because we had NVGs in those days, and you use these chem sticks, and you remember the little tube you break, and the chemical reaction would give you this glow. I cut one open, and I put it on my hands, and I put it on my face. So I'm glowing, okay? We land at a German base. And the Germans do not want to refuel the helicopter. We didn't shut the helicopter. We're looking for a hot refuel. So I get out of the helicopter, and I'm telling them, you got to refuel. And they will not get out because they think we've been up in the radioactive cloud and no one's washed us off. They don't want to get too close to the helicopter. And I really can't blame them. Well, we weren't getting anything on the Geiger. Well, they didn't believe me. So they brought the truck up close to the helicopter, and then they were in the cab, and they wouldn't answer the radios. The guys in the tower conveniently wouldn't answer us. I get out of the seat. I leave the co-pilot in his seat. And I've got the glowing hands. My flight gloves are glowing. My face underneath my helmet visor is glowing. And I've got a little bit on me. And I walk up, and I'm banging on the door, and they're leaning away. And surprisingly now, somebody can speak pretty good English. And he yells at me, refuel it yourself. So I goes over and I turn it on. And then when I was over there, the guy got out real quick. He turned the fuel thing on. I was able to get the fuel. When I turned it off, he got out. He turned it off again. And I walked it back, and we got our fuel, and we went back up to fly, another 3-4 hours in the clouds trying to find radioactivity and report. Let me just say that I got a small bit of a hassle when things trickled back in there. It wasn't my greatest moment, but I had a flight engineer who absolutely thought this was the funniest thing he had ever seen. And he said the part when you put your hands on the window and it left a little bit of the chemical agent behind, it was like you were glowing, And I looked like a sci-fi movie, apparently, as I'm walking back to the helicopter. And of course, I had touched the hose and all that. It was a real mess, but what really was one of my greatest inspired moments. One quick thing before we return to matters at hand. Gary, or otherwise known as Gary, is in the chat room. Gary is a great friend of myself, Don's. I think Chris knows him as well. He does a lot of really. Sure. He's been throwing some great stuff into the chat room tonight. He does Pop Culture Minefield. He is a very talented lad. And really, really great guy. And I want to wish him a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year on air tonight. And he had a question. No, we're not taking any live calls. God, this show could not handle live calls. We would get ourselves in so much trouble. So I think the management of KGRA DB is considering us in the future, if we ever learn how to behave, that we might get live calls. But right now we have to filter it through. But Gary, it's great to see you, brother.
Merry Christmas, Gary.
Ho, ho, ho.
There's a lot packed in that statement.
Oh, dear.
Well, now after that Merry Christmas Chernobyl story, maybe we can get on to more pleasant things.
So predictions, since this is our last show of this year, right? So why don't we just go around the horn and give some predictions as to what we think is going to happen with the UAP subject coming up in 2025. Don, what do you think?
I really hesitate to say anything.
That's a first.
Well, yeah, probably you're probably.
Where is my rim shot? I need one. Ka-ching. Damn! When the Padre, when he hits you with the ruler, he's using the metal side. He's not using the soft rounded side. He's using that little metal.
Padre, you better apologize before he walks off the stage. We've had that happen before too.
I apologize, Silverback.
No, it's things are in such flux right now with these drones, what's going on, the administration's changing in 3 or 4 weeks. The way things are right now, probably, if I had to guess right now, the UAP, I always like to preface it with UFO because that's what it's been for 80 years. The UFO UAP thing is probably far down on the list of people's priorities right now. So as to what is coming up, God only knows. We have a lot of USO reports coming out of here in Southern California. If they come up and they land at Malibu right now, maybe they'll put out those remaining fires up there. But other than that, I don't know.
Oh, my. Chris?
I think it's going to take a back seat. I think Trump is going to become a wartime president. I think obviously everybody looks and says that we're trying to push a war into Russia. The administration that is in office now has been trying to push a war for Russia. And you can't put a guy that's got nuclear weapons in a corner and keep poking at him until something goes a mistake. They've already sent up NATO jets. They've already have Russian bombers off the coast of Alaska. They're playing a very dangerous game. And if something happens, either before Trump's administration takes office or just after he does to turn chaos, because right now things are, I mean, they're not relatively calm, but months ago we had these hearings, and nothing really came out of it. They're just, and I don't think it's because we can't handle it. I think that people will go to jail when they find out that people have been murdered over this, or a vast amount of money has been stolen out of this. And, that's what this all is, a big cover up.
When you talk about logical thinking, okay, this is where, for me, the bear defecated in the buckwheat, okay? The deal is the Ukraine is one of the most corrupt political systems on the planet. All right? Let's be real upfront about this. Do we all remember when Joe Biden under Barack Obama went to the Ukraine? Biden's son was being investigated, and the firm that he was making deals with was being investigated. And Biden went in there and told them to get rid of the prosecutor, or he's taking his $1 billion and going home. And they did. And all the millions of dollars the Biden family got out of the Ukraine. So it doesn't take a house to fall on me like the Wicked Witch of the East, all right, to see that these guys, okay, they wanted ICBM missiles from the United States, not nuclear, but with conventional warheads. We gave it to them to shoot into Russia. And Putin started waving that nuclear sword. Now, thank God, at this point, nothing has happened. I don't think he would have used strategic warheads, but tactical nukes are well within his purview, that something didn't happen. It's as if this administration is so incompetent that they've given these guys the tools to truly start the Third World War. And I'm shocked that the American public aren't raising holy hell about this. But in part, it's because of the media, the corrupt media that won't report on this. I'm sorry, but that just really, I've been to war. You've been to war. You've been to war. You know what the hell it is. It's not a good thing.
I will always, I'm going to kind of split with you guys a little bit. I'm a guy who believes that Russia should be out of Ukraine. I can point to exact events and things that were said or intoned that allowed this to start. But anyone, if you agree with my position that Russia should be out of there and they shouldn't be doing what they're doing.
No argument for me, Deuce. No argument at all.
That we have poured into this and not getting results coming out of it to stop this, to not pursue for peace, to not try to get a handle on this thing is insane. It's much like what's going on with this drone situation. We are feeding stuff in on both sides. If we really gave a crap about Ukraine, you would not allow the Russians to be selling gas to Europe. You wouldn't be doing it. You would have put the embargo. You would have gone to the PRC and said, don't deal with them. Your economy is a mess. We're going to put all kinds of embargoes on you. There was power to do these things. This, I mean, I couldn't even dignify this with what I used to call the playbook of my early life during the Cold War, which I was convinced many a night, much like the night of the story that I'm telling you, the playbook must be Mad Magazine, Spy versus Spy, because this is the nonsense that's going on here. But you got people that are dying. We're pouring stuff into both sides. There's no goal. There's talk about deploying troops. What is there's no end game. There's just this constant feed into it. So, Padre, to answer your question, I don't think we're going to have a UAP breakthrough
Okay.
in 2025. I agree with Chris and Don that bread and circus show has played out. We're going to have matters come up that are of global and national crises that are going to require us to divert our attention. That we're not going to look at this. And possibly, I think, though I will venture that in 2025, when we get to some real tough budgetary decisions, and we're trying to get the cooling effect, we may release some information about technology that we have or capabilities that we have, or we may see some reports of strange phenomena that's going on. Another tic-tac type event that comes out that to throw that information out there that we can reach out and touch it. But unfortunately for UAP event, we are, I think, a decade away to address what Don has talked about, written about extensively, to break the lock on the Special Access Program, the SAP that holds the keys to this. Because what you're seeing again with this UAP, or correction, the drone UAS events that are going on is a microcosm of what keeps us from knowing about UAPs. We have a self-appointed group, not elected, self-perpetuating is the word I'm looking for, self-perpetuating their control on this. And all of this is tied in. Like, I like to talk about the other types of phenomena that go along with UFOs, from everything from Bigfoots to spiritualism and all the things that go on, the paranormal stuff, aspects of this. The same thing is happening in the UAP part of it. And that's why you will always see the vast majority of folks that are pushing always are going to have that kook factor they can point to and say, well, we got them. We threw them some breadcrumbs on this. Let them feast on that, and let's just continue to run the program.
Well, I guess it's my turn. You gentlemen know I'm a pastor. I believe in the Bible and what it says. I tell my congregation Bible is an acronym. It stands for Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. And if you look in the book, there are prophecies that talk about what's going to be happening as we steamroll into the end of human history. And I think that the mention of wars and rumors of wars is quite relevant in our time today. It talks about earthquakes, natural disasters in obscure places where they normally don't occur. Well, we're seeing that taking place. It also mentions strange sights in the heavens that people will notice. And I think we're going to see a notable increase in UAP activity during the course of the next 12 months, to the extent which it's not going to be something that people can just brush under the rug in terms of media and government, because we need to hold them accountable. We cannot have these types of things threatening our aircraft, threatening our aviators, threatening our livestock, breaking into rooms at night, harming people. There's things going on here that transcend the physical realm and move into the spiritual realm. And because of the faith that I have, my Christian faith in Jesus Christ and how things work down at the end, I am apprehensive for what it means for billions of people. Because as all these things come to a head, the Bible tells us that in the world of great chaos, a singular leader will emerge to unite the planet under a one world government rule. Now just stop and think about that for a moment, what that means. All the different cultures suddenly deciding they're going to believe in one person. Who is this person? And it says that this person is going to initially have great success in mitigating these global problems until that evil side begins to emerge, and you find out that those who disagree disappear. And so I'd look for increased chaos, increased UAP activity, increased unrest, but overriding that is a hope that tells us that that too shall pass, and the best years for humanity are ahead after a pretty bumpy ride. So that's my forecast for 2025.
Send Santa a letter and ask him to please bring you a Colt, a Smith & Wesson, or a Glock.
I will meet you on the range any day, my friend, and we can have a little shootout, and we'll see how that goes.
Bible in one hand and your Glock in the other.
I'm not a Glock fan.
Oh, shame on you, Padre.
I get it, but
Shame on you.
that feel of the old 1911 in my hand I just can't top that.
I can't argue with that, but I just say that, you know, this guy and what you said before, this country has lost a lot of values, things that we used to take pride in. We no longer have pride in, and I think that's part of why we're going to hopefully change that. But we have become a weak country to our adversaries. They would never do what they're doing now if we were stronger. We project, you know, I always believed in what they said, that peace is done through strength. If you project strength, you know, hand out an olive branch but carry a big stick kind of a dig. I think that keeps everybody in check to say, hey, listen, you know, we don't need this. And we're not in that position anymore where we have countries who have nefarious ideas to destroy us are thinking this is the time right now to do it. Because I think we got a leader coming in that has already proven that he's not going to take crap from anybody. And I think these people know that their time is limited.
As we round up, and we're going to give Padre the final bow out before we close the show out, I'll start. I want to. I know we didn't have a chance to talk around Thanksgiving, but partially thankful. I really enjoy, obviously, and thank you three to saddle up and to do this show and work around my crazy schedule and you know, the inspirational messages, especially from Don, very inspirational messages and photographs that he will send from time to time to get our act together, to get a show and get things put together. But I want to also single out the audience. Over the last, I'd say 8-9 months, many folks have reached out, contacted. That's why I throw the email address up there. I try to answer everybody as promptly as I possibly can, and I have a few folks. I just want to say to the audience, thank you so much for sticking out with us on the show, giving us. I know that there's a real groundswell that people in the audience want us to really dive into Roswell. They want us to explore it, maybe reach out to some of the people that are out there to come on as a guest. And we got a couple, I think, really good guests coming up. Folks that are trying to, you know, get the schedules to align, and we'll talk about that. But a big thank you and a very special one to the folks that support KGRA DB on all the programs, but especially folks that listen to us here. So I wish everyone happiest of holidays, all the best in the new year, and as a fellow Christian to the Padre, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, folks.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you for supporting us.
Yes. Merry Christmas. Well, is that my cue?
Yeah, go ahead, start.
Okay. Today we've been talking about strange things in the sky. People are seeing lights they can't identify. That's kind of been the case ever since Adam and Eve reclined next to their campfire and looked up into the heavens and marveled at the expanse of the universe God created. But about 2,000 years ago, there was a group of stargazers who noticed something unusual in the sky that they could not identify. It looked like a star. Usual. Didn't move like the rest of the stars. It seemed locked into a position. And being men who were studying in a variety of cultures, they went and they looked at the various texts from around the world, and they found that there was a passage in the books of Moses that spoke of a powerful king who would arrive in Israel, and his arrival would be heralded by a star that would appear. And these men followed that star. Had to be a pretty special star because unlike most stars that just are kind of there, this one continued to rise in the sky as they got closer. They were closing in on it. And eventually, after a journey of about 1,200 miles, it took them more than 3 months, they arrived at a house in Bethlehem. They encountered a woman and a very young male child. And there was something about that child that drove them to their knees and caused them to offer gifts of great value. Of course, that child grew and taught us that really what God wants us to do is love him and love each other. All the other stuff doesn't impress him. And for that radical and harmful message, they killed him. But you can't keep a good man down. And the grave didn't hold him. And here 2,000 years later, we look to the heavens again, and we wonder, from whence will our salvation come? In the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament, as we reflect on the world that we live in, there's some words that could apply to us. It's chapter 9. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of deep darkness, on them the light has shone. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and he shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end, on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and uphold it with justice and righteousness from this time forth forevermore. So there is hope, my friends. There is hope that the people who have walked in darkness, and our times are pretty dark, will again see a great light. And my wish for each and every one of you is that the year ahead will be filled with light and hope and peace as you reconnect with what really matters in life. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from UAP Crossfire.
See you in 25.